Hi, third grade. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. I'm super excited about today's learning. Today, we are going to be looking at a fairy tale. So, when we read fairy tales, we know that fairy tales are traditional tales that tell stories about magical characters and events. Authors of fairy tales, they usually tell the story through plot, and the characters in the fairy tales sometimes include royalty. Okay, and a lot of times our fairy tales, they're going to start with once upon a time or long, long ago. And authors of fairy tales use a lot of sensory language and figurative language to develop the setting and the characters. Now, today's story, I think you're going to recognize it sounds very similar to another fairy tale that we're all familiar with. We're going to be reading Cinder Owl and the Stinky Footwear. What other fairy tale do you think that might kind of sound like? I was thinking the same thing. Cinderella sounds a lot like Cinderella. So as we read today, I want you to think about how are the illustrations or the characters similar to Cinderella and how are they different? Okay. Now you are going to find this story is humorous, which means it's funny. It's a funny version of our well-known Cinderella tale. Cinderella and the Stinky Footwear by Roger Lohr and illustrated by Chin Ko. Once upon a time, in the land of Stinky Hollow, there lived three brothers. The oldest brother, Stinky Steve, was a mighty skunk wrestler, and wrestling skunks made Steve reek. The middle brother was Odoriferous Owen. Owen owned the biggest onion farm in the land and grew onions the size of ostriches. Growing giant onions made Owen pretty stinky, too. The third brother was Al. Al didn't stink. In fact, he loved nothing more than keeping things clean and sweetly scented. He polished the cottage floors with lemony fresh oils, and he used lavender-scented soap to wash his clothes. His favorite pastime was cleaning the fireplace. He gathered the cinders and replaced them with flower petals and scented candles. Thanks to Al, the cottage, when his brothers weren't around, smelled like a flower shop. However, Al's stinky brothers didn't appreciate a clean fireplace and fresh aromas, so they made fun of him and called him Cinder Owl. Stinky Hollow was ruled by Princess P.U. Princess P.U. was an even mightier skunk wrestler than Stinky Steve, and she could pin 5 skunks at one time. She was a more fantastic farmer than Odoriferous Owen. She grew 10-ton garlic in the palace garden. Because of these mighty stinky abilities, Princess P.U. was the stinkiest person in Stinky Hollow, and she had no one to dance with at the upcoming palace ball. So she issued a royal proclamation. Ooh, look right here, proclamation. It tells us a proclamation is a statement or message of an important matter that everyone needs to know. And remember, she's the princess, so look at this. It's pretty important. Hear ye, blah, blah, etc., etc., etc. The stinky bachelor who can wear the stinky footwear will get to dance with the Princess P.U. at the palace ball. If all works out, the two of you might get married, but no promises. Are you realizing anything similar to our traditional Cinderella story? What so far is like Cinderella? Yes, I was thinking the same thing. The shoes. Yep. The princess needs someone to marry, just like in Cinderella, the prince needed someone to marry. So I'm making some connections here. We do have some things that are alike, and I bet we're going to find more. The stinky footwear was nothing more than a pair of elegant dancing shoes. However, these shoes came with one pungent problem. They reeked, they stank, they smelled like the biggest skunk in the garbage dump on the hottest day of the year and eating 4 rotten eggs. Whoa, guys, that's stinky. So that tells me this word right here, pungent, a pungent problem, it sounds like that might be a stinky, stinky problem. Wearing these shoes and surviving their terrible stench wouldn't be easy. even for the stinkiest bachelors in Stinky Hollow. However, the rotten rink of the stinky footwear didn't stop Stinky Steve. He followed his nose straight to the palace. When he placed the footwear onto his feet, his eyes watered, his stomach churned, and his nose stung. Steve couldn't stand the stench, and he raced out of the palace screaming, "I'd rather sniff 70 skunks!" Odiferous Owen went next, and he did far worse than his smelly brother. After one whiff of the stinky footwear, Owen fainted. He passed out right in front of Princess P.U. "No one will ever wear the stinky footwear," Steve Owen argued back at home. "But I haven't tried yet," said Cinder Owl. Cinder's Owl's brothers snickered. You'll never be able to stand that stench, Cinder Owl." That night, Cinder Owl had a visit from his fragrant fairy godmother, who always smelled as fresh as daisies on a beautiful spring day. Ooh, a fairy godmother. "Listen, Owl, you will wear the stinky footwear and dance with Princess P.U. Here's what to do." The next day, Cinder Owl headed straight to the palace with him. With him, he carried a clothespin and a bag of cleaning supplies. He clipped the clothespin on his nose. Then he gave the stinky footwear the cleaning of a lifetime, and in no time, the slippers smelled like a bed of beautiful roses. Best of all, they fit his feet perfectly. So off to the palace ball went Cinder Owl, sporting the stinky footwear and the clothespin. While Princess P.U. was really nice, she liked to wrestle skunks and grow garlic, which is, of course, disturbingly stinky. The princess and Owl hit it off like onions and liver. Ew, stinky. And the rest? Well, let's just say everything worked out happily ever after.